Yeah.
See, I'm asking.
It's just working out.
I guess that's what he's staring at.
I didn't think I'd be tall enough.
Good, okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order this evening, and it's our financial plan hearing for 2022. And in the council chamber, we have 5 members of council. And Councillor Boulanger has joined us via Zoom. He's out of town, but he did join us via Zoom. And myself, and we have our CAO, Deepak Joshi. We also have our communications manager who's doing the recording today, Brett Paskra. And also on, name escapes me, virtually our finance officer, Shannon Kleschke, and one of the finance staff from the office here, Mike. And with that, I would like to welcome the 2 of you here this evening. We don't have anybody on Zoom at the moment, and I'm not sure that anybody else is going to be joining us this evening. So I'm glad you're taking the time out of your evening to attend and learn more about the 2022 financial plan. We are excited to finally be able to welcome you back into the council chamber after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic. This year's budget will be the last of this council's term, and with that, I'd like to reflect a little bit on the year we've had, because it has proven to be one of the most challenging yet. With another year of the COVID pandemic weighing heavily on our shoulders, it was crucial that we continue to provide essential services and at the same time maintain the health and safety of our residents and our staff. By adapting to an ever-evolving world of communication, we were committed to being transparent and providing our residents with important information by exploring new methods of communicating, like using the Zoom platform and relying on our Connect system for any emergencies that arose. We initiated significant infrastructure projects over the year, including the additions to our active transportation system, expanding the opportunity for residents to connect to the sewer system in the Henderson catchment area, extensive roadworks and drainage throughout the municipality, upgrades to our East Selkirk water treatment plant, which include a water softening system and a truck fill station, and nearly completing the St. Clements Park on Donald Road, to name a few. More recently, we have engaged consultants to work with the province to, I guess it's to try and figure out if we can provide a sewer service in the Grand Marais area. At this time, we're not sure what the report is going to tell us, and it may be that the sewage may be going to the Grand Marais Lagoon, which is ours, or to the Provincial Park Lagoon within Grand Beach Provincial Park. Having said all that, I think all of council can agree that it has been one of our busiest years. And then, on top of all this, Mother Nature threw us a curveball and gave us the most challenging winter and spring that we've seen in over a decade. Whether it was dangerous travel conditions, road and highway closures, record-breaking snowfall accumulations, or most recently, significant rainfall, these unprecedented weather events have kept us on our toes. Although the difficult weather has added stress and kept us busier than ever, we continue to ensure all departments work together so we can function smoothly and effectively, whether that's our emergency officer, fire departments, public works, or our communications. As leaders, this year has taught us an abundance of lessons like adaptability, the importance of listening to the voices of our community, building trust with our communication and reconciliation, to mention a few. Most importantly, we are in agreement that it's confirmed with us, and we hope it's done the same for you, the importance of community and the strength we can provide when we support one another and work together. Council is committed to delivering on their vision of sustainable growth, enhanced amenities and services, and offering people of all ages desirable places to live and recreate by following the strategic plan goals, which include the comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, and waste, affordability, targeted sustainable growth, preparation and planning for future needs in amenities and services, and lastly, a flourishing recreation destination. In 2021, our population climbed 6.5% to 11,586, which is validation that it is continuous growth in St. Clements. We need to continue our vision of making St. Clements the place to be by attracting those young families that are looking for a place to call home, retaining new families that move to the area, and making sure the needs of our longtime residents are met. This sustainable growth will in turn result in a larger tax base, which will help address the challenge of continuously facing rising costs with a limited income. Demands for increasing service levels persist, and we need to identify how we can best meet these while balancing the ever-increasing cost of managing a municipality without burdening our taxpayers. We have worked on our plan, and tonight we are hoping to help you, our residents, learn more about this year's budget. I will now ask our CAO, Deepak Joshi, to present our financial plan overview and the planning process that we use. We will open up for questions once the presentation is complete, and all the questions, if we don't have the answers at our fingertips, we will get back to you with them very shortly. So thank you for that, and I'll turn it over to Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are presenting the financial plan for the Arm of St. Clements, which has been developed through collaboration with administration and council. It addresses our revenues, our expenditures, projects that are being put forward as, and most importantly, what are the priorities for this municipality. The financial plan helps in taking the municipality in a direction that will enable it to manage expected growth, infrastructure, and requests for service while keeping the tax rate to a sustainable level and protecting the environment. The financial plan also takes into consideration the unexpected challenges the municipality may face due to uncertain times that we are presently encountering. The financial plan also supports a strategic plan completed in 2019 and the goals established in that plan. Specifically speaking to the goals in the plan, there was a strategic vision established by council, which was that the Arm of St. Clements is committed to sustainable growth, enhanced amenities and services, and offering people of all ages desirable places to live and recreate. The municipality supports a diverse land uses settlement types while maintaining an environment where diverse residents across the municipality coexist in harmony. With this vision, council established goals and values to which we will be speaking to today. Specifically on the area of communication and openness, a commitment was made by council for open and transparent government. To achieve that, we have established media mechanisms to make sure that all residents have access to information. Last year, council introduced the financial plan outline as a document to help our residents understand the technical document of the financial plan. This year, what we did was, in addition to the financial plan outline that we also provided this year, on March the 26th, an open house, which was a hybrid open house of utilizing Zoom video conferencing as well as in person to accommodate discussions and dialogue through the financial plan. All that, the meetings were recorded and have been made available to all citizens on our website. The plan itself, as previously reported, dealt with the growth in Arm of St. Clements, and had a conservative estimate of about 1,600 to 4,200 by the year 2036, which is estimated at 5.41% per year going forward, which is about 500 people per year. Based on the 2021 census, we've seen a growth of 6.5%, and the estimated growth now could be over 8,000 people by 2036. As we can appreciate, one constant is that change is happening in our current environment. We are fortunate to be a growing municipality. As growth is managed and facilitated, it can be an important contributor to sustainable tax levels to the citizens of the municipality. We also have various challenges in demands for increased service levels and increased responsibilities placed on the RM by the provincial legislation with limited revenue growth. The municipality needs to be prepared also for some unknown and sometimes difficult external influences on finances, resources, and service levels. As we have seen from recent weather events, a municipality has to respond quickly when these events occur. Our responsibility is to develop strategies and actions in order to provide a level of predictability for our ratepayers. Priorities for the service deliveries have been communicated through the strategic plan by creating goals and actions, which the budget supports. Climate change and its impact on our existing drainage network, along with our ability to respond to these unanticipated severe weather events, needs to be addressed. And an example would be the late falls of 2019, storms of 2019, droughts of 2021, winter storms of 2022, and the recent rain this spring, or COVID-related expenses. As well, it is understood that much of the infrastructure, the roads and the buildings in the RM were built over 50 years ago, and fixing or replacing these assets will be an expensive endeavor. This demand for improvement to transportation networks and recreation opportunities continues to be a priority for the RM and its citizens. Council and the administration are also well aware of the importance of keeping taxation at reasonable levels for the long term. Therefore, opportunities needed to be explored for managing expenses and revenue growth through economic development. Focus on development of regional infrastructure allows for reducing costs and increasing service levels with a focus on exploring operational efficiencies through technological advancements and systems. Our financial plan continues to support a $4 million commitment in funding for hard surface roads maintenance over the 4-year term of council. And in fact, that funding commitment has been surpassed by approximately $1.26 million as of this year. An asset management program is being worked on for the municipality, which will be developed over the next couple of years. This process will allow us to review all our infrastructure and determine the most cost-effective methods in lowering the life cycle costs of all our assets. The specific projects for each year for hard surface roads is shown with the funding coming from Council's commitment to roads through the 1 mil rate dedication for road improvements per year. In 2020, the RM is again investing in major road projects. These projects will be completed utilizing funding from the infrastructure reserve funded through the 1 mil rate per year. The projects are this year of Watchell Drive, Church Road, off of Ferry Road, and Spruce Drive, totaling over $1.4 million. As a large RM, we have 728 square kilometers. Drainage projects continue to be a priority in order to reduce the overland flood risks for priority areas. In order to reduce the overland flood risk, the RM continues to work on priority drains and complete further drainage studies. Climate change and its impact on existing drainage network, along with our ability to respond to unanticipated events, continues to be a priority. In 2021, the RM finished many long-standing drainage issues and has now begun to focus on priorities related with unanticipated events, which I would say helped with some of the major events that occurred in the last couple of weekends. Along with that, we, the RM, in 2019, introduced a capital project of $3.5 million to address the various priority drainage works, as completing them with limited operating budgets would have taken many years. All of the priority projects identified were completed by 2021, and this year's funds have been allocated to ongoing operating accounts to continue to address drainage on an ongoing basis and complete further drainage studies, which means starting in 2022, we will be now putting operating funds into drainage on an ongoing basis to address all the various other drainage issues that we've encountered. This year, the RM has identified several drainage projects. They've been identified by the two wards, such as IXL ditching, Brickway ditching, and so forth, and 92 North, 43 East ditching, 33 East, between 80 North and 81 North. So there are various projects, including the CIL at Creek and so forth, to address the various drainage issues. And as well, we've learned from some recent concerns that have started from this year's rains that we'll be adding some additional projects as we move forward and bring forward for council. As to the goals that were established in the strategic plan for comprehensive plans for roads and drainage and waste, in 2021, the RM borrowed $5.5 million. Did I jump ahead a little too far?
I think you made
Yeah,
it.
I did. Sorry. Yes, I did. Bringing, as to goal 1, comprehensive plans for roads, drainage, and waste, bringing additional sewage capacity to the Red River corridor has been identified as a high priority by the council, and it is important for the future of the RM. With significant grants received in 2020, especially a $2.7 million grant from the province climate resiliency grant towards the Guns Creek diversion, has allowed the RM to review and refocus our capital projects, which allowed the RM to repurpose approximately $4.3 million in a previous borrowing authority to be directed towards strategic infrastructure projects. Those strategic infrastructure projects were through the borrowing from the $4.3 million that were additional, taking the advantage of the $4.3 million, the RM went forward in 2021 with $5.5 million of borrowing as a total, and that gave them, with that authority, we're able to start the first phase of the South St. Clements utility infrastructure, which was the Henderson wastewater project, as well as the expansion of the East Selkirk water softener project to be a water treatment plant with growth potential for the next 25 years and a truck fill. This allowed the RM to leverage the borrowing for infrastructure grants from the Province of Manitoba Water Services Board and the provincial restart programs for a total of estimated project funding, which will be completed this year, of $9.7 million towards both of those projects. Along with borrowing, Council is well aware that the delivery of services to the citizens of the RM St. Clements relies significantly on property taxes as the main source of revenue, which is approximately 49%. The other 51% of the revenue of the municipality is made up of business taxes, utilities, fees, various grants, and the use of reserves. With targeted sustainable growth and managing costs for ratepayers, it'll be important to concentrate on other sources of revenue to continue to reduce the reliance on property taxes. To further illustrate, in reviewing the taxes on households in St. Clements, the municipality has only one significant source of income, being property taxes. A review of the median household income of $86,912 was used from the 2015 dollars from the 2016 census. A comparison against the income tax and education levy sources of revenue for the province was used against the municipal portion of the property tax, estimated at this year at $1,404, or 1.62% for an average household in St. Clements, assessed at $300,000. It should be noted, other sources of income, such as growth income, such as PST and GST, and federal taxes were not used in this comparison. The above chart shows the distribution of the funds of services for municipal taxes. Provincial and federal grants, service fees, transfers from accumulated surpluses, and transfers from specific surpluses and specific purpose reserves helps the municipality's taxes pay for approximately 49% of the entire budget of the municipality. And moving on to the next slide. This year, it should be noted that the province of Manitoba has made a commitment to reducing school taxes by a further 32% in 2022. The 32% refund in 2022 from the province will be sent out to taxpayers by check directly from their province. The 2% increase in the municipal portion of the tax bill will show an increase of approximately $27 for an average property assessed at $300,000. The chart above shows the overall proportion of taxes collected, with 57% of the taxes collected at the property tax level from all tax bills attributed to school taxes and 43% attributed towards running of the municipality. As well, it needs to be noted that taxes collected do not represent the funding for all expenditures in 2022. As mentioned, 49% of their expenditures is covered through taxes. To further illustrate, despite the various financial challenges facing municipalities, it's important that we keep costs affordable for our community. St. Clements has one of the lowest taxes compared to our neighboring municipalities and is committed to maintaining that. The table above shows our 2022 mill rate, which is as part of the lower half of when compared to our neighbors. The mill rate, should be noted, is not always the best indicator when comparing taxes between municipalities, as numerous other factors must also be considered. The average cost of homes, lot sizes, density, the amount of commercial and industrial assessment, along with service levels, will impact levels of taxation. The per dwelling comparison addresses some of these challenges, but it does not offer a clear picture. Some of the listed municipalities have substantial commercial and industrial properties. Some of them are much smaller in area. Some cover various, and all these things impact the revenue for an RM. To keep costs affordable, Council has committed to limit property taxes to 2% this year. This is a challenge. Revenues from the province have been frozen at 2017 levels, or in the case of the roads grants, reduced by 40%. If inflation persists, or even if we go into a recession as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, there will be considerable pressure on municipal resources and service delivery. The cost of fuel and hydro and wages continue to rise, regardless of the provincial freeze. To keep taxes under control for the long term, we need to attract new residents and new developments. And it should be noted, Council made a commitment to keep all expenditures at 2020 levels as we move forward for 2020, 21, and 22. Along with keeping costs affordable for our ratepayers, it also requires management of expenses, such as fiscal and cash flow management, which has allowed the RM to reduce its reliance on utilizing the operating line of credit. In 2020, the RM worked to eliminate interest expenses related to utilizing the line of credit. The chart below shows the continued progress in reducing operating costs related to short-term line of credit borrowing, with continued progress in cash balance stabilization. Good planning is also essential to providing services at a reasonable cost for generations to come. A poorly planned development could result in additional maintenance expenses without property tax revenue to support those costs. Good planning can also identify opportunities to increase, to increase housing options and lead to an expansion of our tax base. Economic development is important as well, in order to find ways to make investment in St. Clements attractive. This could mean an expansion of industrial or commercial lots or targeted rezoning efforts. The administration has engaged with planning consultants to review complex subdivisions, create concept plans, and pass text amendments in the zoning bylaw. The Henderson Sewer Project and marketing of the Sunset Bay Estates for new housing is complete. We will continue to identify marketable lots and land parcels with a review to real estate market and improve liaisons with developers at an early stage. The RM continues to promote also lands for conservation subdivision. Moving on to Goal 3, which was targeted sustainable growth. A request for proposal was put forward to develop a multi-use commercial residential option in the RM land in the East Selkirk on property just to the south of our office. Regional infrastructure to promote orderly development also has been created. So we now have a Henderson Sewer project, which has allowed us to create a regional wastewater management, which accommodates for both the Ward 1 and Ward 2 regional services. We've also implemented a water treatment plant, which will now be a regional water treatment plant to provide water not only to residents in East Selkirk, but eventually to water to Lockport and beyond, as well as integration with providing services to our neighboring municipalities, such as East St. Paul and the arm of St. Andrews. Water lines to Lockport, the design is complete, costing has been completed, and we're waiting to see if we can get some further funding support from the province. Wastewater study and design for the Grand Marais, as mentioned earlier by Madam Mayor, has begun, where we will be costing out the costs for providing wastewater services to our community in Grand Marais to provide further opportunities for development, not only for the businesses, but also for the residents, and as well bring property values up. Economic development opportunities in Lockport and Grand Marais are continuing to be supported through funding to support local businesses, as well as through funding through development in the main areas of those communities. Seniors and affordable housing opportunities in East Selkirk are being explored through various development proposals, and a commitment to recreational opportunities now that we can finally have an opportunity to take advantage of recreational opportunities due to relaxing of the health regulations due to COVID are being explored and being put forward this year. Moving on to goal number 4, which was to anticipate future needs and amenities and services. We are very excited about the Activity Center project on the 10 acres of land on Donald Road. This year we will see the completion of the groundworks and the park on the site, the plan which includes walking trails, water feature areas for program space, and eventually a recreational building. The administration has increased fitness programs for adults through various partnerships and will continue to examine and utilize these types of partnerships for future delivery of programs in order to broaden the opportunities within the community. The administration will be utilizing the needs assessment completed to direct future program and services identified through that public consultation. It should be noted that not only is that a recreational opportunity, but that is also an opportunity to manage our drainage network. The lake that's been developed here is a retention basin, which helps to manage the Guns Creek due to flooding risks for south of the RM, going as south as far as the arm of East St. Paul, as well as dealing with drainage issues to the north. Moving on to goal number 5, which is recreational destination. Unlike many of our neighboring municipalities, St. Clements can boast a range of exceptional 4-season outdoor recreational opportunities, and they are increasingly getting noticed. Whether it's more people ice fishing travel or Travel Manitoba's work to brand East Beaches as a destination, there's a unique opportunity for St. Clements to build on this momentum. Positive interest in these recreational amenities can be a source of pride for residents and showcase the municipality's future residents, increasing the potential for future economic spin-offs. The RM has worked collaboratively to form a tourism marketing committee for the beaches of 59 for East Beaches, and will continue to promote Grand Marais and beaches as a 4-season tourism destination for marketing a strategic plan for Beaches 59. There has been continued focus on increasing water access points throughout the municipality with non-motorized and motorized boat launches as one example of water access. As this year we will be looking at implementing a boat launch off of St. Peter's Road as a motorized boat launch, and we'll be exploring non-motorized boat launches, as well as we'll be focusing on the opportunity to have boat access due to the dredging in Grand Beach. And our collaborative work with other municipalities and the Grand Beach Provincial Park has also helped us to promote destination tourism in the East Beaches area. The RM will continue to focus on these services as continuing with funding summer season washrooms for the 4 beach locations, we will continue to focus on partnerships with school divisions and existing organizations such as ESRA and the GMRA. The RM is committed to public engagement and consultation in order to provide transparent government, as mentioned earlier. The municipality has deployed many methods, including the Connect, which allows us to communicate with our community in case of emergencies. And we continue to communicate important information through various communication methods and mediums, and are being recognized by other municipalities by the virtue of them copying the same messages that we are providing to our citizens, that they are providing to their citizens as of late. In order to provide information to the citizens of the RM in a way that we would like, social media and newsletters, and this year will be online and printed material, will continue to be explored as a medium that will be utilized to communicate in a more effective manner with our citizens. Further to that, to our values of financial accountability, the municipal financial strategy utilizes reserve funds to allocate dollars specifically to major costs such as equipment, infrastructure, and projects. This is what we would call cash to capital. As funding is put forward, we increase our reserve accounts so that as we predict future capital projects and future works needed, we are able to fund those without having to rely on borrowing for all projects. In order to accomplish this, as an example, year-end surpluses in 2020 resulting from the various grants and cost savings throughout the year allowed for nearly $870,000 of funding to be allocated towards these reserves in order to provide funding capacity to accommodate these future capital projects, as well as year-end surpluses from 2021 resulting from the AFABEX dissolution and various cost savings throughout the year allowed the RM to allocate $1 million in funding to replenish the various multiple capital-only reserves, providing for funding capacity to accommodate these future capital costs. In 2021, Council has directed also created a general purpose reserve in order to address any future unknown external influences on finances without having to go into further debt and resources such as service levels. An example would be the increases in costs in 2021 due to the various storms that came forward in 2021, and the major storms of 2022 are able to be absorbed now without having to rely on having to increase mill rate in order to fund these expenses. In 2021, Council also implemented a 3-year budgeting strategy to create a level of predictability, and this allowed for adoption of the 1 year and allowing for an understanding what the principle of growth on those no more than 2% if necessary. This new strategy will expedite the budgeting process in the future for annually and provide for increased focus on overall operations. Getting on to our revenues and growth, so in the comparison, as an example, we'll see that our budget for 2022 identifies that there is a total tax levy of $19 million with grants of $756,000 coming to its subtotal of $20 million. Must understand that 11.5 of that, which is the 57%, is the school levy. Of that, 32% is then redistributed back to our residents. A check from the province of Manitoba, and the municipal taxes is $8.7 million, the 43%. While we have other revenues that have been identified on our financial plan on page 2, and these are where we transfer from reserves to fund capital projects and the various other grants and other things that we receive. So we have accumulated surpluses and we have other revenues that come in as part of that, which brings up our total municipal revenue estimated budget of $17 million of $907,000, as opposed to last year's budget, which was $18 million. A majority of those increases that have the greatest significant increases is dependent on the capital projects which are sometimes slated to come forward year after year. Along with that, as mentioned, the expenditures were, direction of council was to manage expenditures at 2020 levels. And as moving that forward in 2021 and 2022, we have managed to keep the expenditures at 2020 levels. You will notice a slight increase in general government services of approximately some $57,000, or a little bit less than $57,000. And those costs are directly related, a good chunk of those costs are related to a special reserve that was set up in order to pay for election funding, for the costs related to election every 4 years. Council put a specific amount every year as part of the budget, as part of the reserve in order to manage that. So it doesn't have a direct impact on the costs. Well, you'll see other increases. I must note that transportation services and protected services have large fluctuations depending on the capital projects that may be associated in buying equipment and other services that need to be purchased. And fiscal services, of course, is the transfer of funding to reserves and from reserves. And so this shows a total municipal expenditure to balance at $17,907,000. Along with that, I wanted to further illustrate the capital expenditures and give an understanding of how it can fluctuate significantly and why reserves are so important to a municipality to create a level of financial sustainability. And so what we have is transportation services, where we'll be requiring purchases of trucks as they age through our asset management, sometimes 20-year-old trucks that need to be replaced, 15, 20-year-old trucks. And then we have various graders, and these are very significant costs. As you can see, every year we go through these life cycles of having to replace them, and many of them have come to that time of life cycle. Council has made sure that the reserves have been put in place in order to manage these without having to get any significant impact on the budgets. As you can see, over the 3 years, we've gone from $2 million, $2.5 million to 2.9, and then $5.1 million in capital investment throughout the year. And some of those can be predicted, and that's why the reserves are established. So this year, along with the purchase of the capital, a capital list of items have been identified for purchases. And there's a significant list of items in here. Some are small, some are large, but it's identifying all the capital items that are being purchased. And what I wanted to draw the attention is they are being borne by reserves, a majority of them. And what you'll see, the other ones that are being borne by borrowing are strategic projects, such as the South St. Clements Utility Works, which is the Henderson Sewer Project at $3.5 million, which was also then further supported through Manitoba Water Services Board for another approximate $2 million. And then what we have is the East Selkirk Water Treatment Plant softener, truck fill, and upgrade, which was $2 million, and which was expanded to accommodate 25 years worth of growth, anticipated growth. It's to the best of our abilities, and that $2 million was invested by us, with an additional $2.1 million coming from the province of Manitoba. And then what we have is the South St. Clements Recreation Center. The $2 million has been allocated, and we are taking it into consideration as part of the budget so that we don't see any. So when we get approval, or if we get approval from the federal government and the province of Manitoba to build a building, we have our share, and we've accounted for that share, and the cost associated with borrowing has been taken. So it's not just a borrowing authority, but we've also taken into consideration the cost that would be. And the water control works. Here's an example of where additional costs there was a $3.5 million investment in the water control works, which was the drainage works. The $3.5 million was then augmented because we received the $2.7 million for the Guns Creek diversion. The Guns Creek diversion was part of the $3.5 million originally identified, so that allowed us to reallocate the funds. In addition to that, some $900,000 over the previous 2 years of costs were directly into operating expenditures throughout the year so that we didn't have to borrow at the end of the year. So now we're at $1.5 million of borrowing, and that's when we were able to direct the rest of that funding or borrowing authority that we needed. Moving on to those borrowing projects, as mentioned, the South Comains Rec facility was originally at $4.85 million borrowing authority, revised to $2 million, which gave us room for $2.85 million as room for future. And in the case of the water control works as identified, which was for the drainage, 3.5 was originally borrowing authority, and then 1.5 was what's needed now this year to borrow, and then 1.95 was now given as an opportunity to be able to redirect towards these other two projects, which were $2 million and $3.5 for a total of 5.5. And as I mentioned earlier, which allowed us to leverage the funding with the province of Manitoba to turn it into $9.7 million of investment within the RM, while it only cost the RM $5.5 million. I also need to note that the RM also did a unique factor. We borrowed the money in advance at the lower rate of 2.89%, and which turned out, because both of those projects are going to be completed this year, that rate at the provincial rate is at 4.5% right now, and it could be higher by the time it's finished. And so that borrowing allowed us to stick within the borrowing authority that the RM had of the 4.83. We borrowed 5.5 million, and our cost to the RM stayed the same for our monthly borrowing costs. So I think that's important to note. And that was identified as part of our analysis when the borrowing authority, when the public hearing was done for that borrowing authority in 2021. In order to understand some of this, it's also, the borrowing gets confused sometimes as to what is being borrowed and how much. So the 2022 budget here identifies our current position. And so I need to identify in here that there are rules established under the province of Manitoba which identifies that a municipality cannot borrow more than 7% of their total municipal assessment. And so as the assessment increases, you can borrow more as your capacity to borrow. So that is the amount that you can borrow. And that translates to approximately $35 million of that 7%. The RM St. Clement still has 4.42% debt capacity remaining, which shows that we are in a sound debt borrowing position. And we still have $35 million capacity if necessary. In the payment capacity, the province highlights that 20% of the annual revenue. So one is the total assessment base that you could borrow against, so what your value of your properties are within the RM. The other is the amount of revenue that you're generating. What are you generating from taxes? And you can only borrow up to 20% as your debt capacity. And this year, we are again, we are staying consistent in managing this, and we have, out of that 20%, 10.45% still available, totaling over $1.9 million in payments. This is a commitment to the fiscal management and has allowed the RM to continue to be in a sound financial position as compared to many RMs, as compared to many municipalities. I can tell you that the City of Winnipeg and other larger municipalities are nowhere near this level of, and are constantly hitting that debt ceiling in order to manage the cost of their resources. So the RM is in very good condition. So, but debt isn't just debt that's paid through taxes. So debt is also paid through various other sources, so not all debt. So general taxation only accounts for 30% of those debt payments on top of that. So the balance of that debt is offset by cash inflows from specific local improvements. So when there's local improvements, when there's specific projects it still goes up against our debt borrowing. Although we have an increase in our revenue because it's directly paid by those local improvement charges, it still impacts us. And then we have specific infrastructure projects benefiting those properties will be, and so 23% of that is through LID. And then we have utility rates, such as projects for sewer and water are also paid through utility rates, and that also counts. And then what we have is the gas tax, and we manage the gas tax itself. Oh, looks like we lost Shannon again, it's having to reconnect. And we have the gas tax, that's part of the process. So the gas tax is also part of our reserves that we manage. And so in order to get a better understanding of this, what I wanted to show is the 4 years of council of every year at the end of the year, what has been done in order to make the changes to be able to get into a sound financial position for our reserves. The various reserves are all established for very specific purposes. That's why the general purpose reserve was created, because it allowed some flexibility for unanticipated events. As in capital improvement, you will see a significant increase in capital improvement, but a good chunk of that is part of the general purpose reserve that will be allocated to the general purpose once the audits are finished and we get audited statements, and we'll be able to move forward for placing approximately about 1.5 million of that will be going into the general purpose reserve. And so, but the reserve still total of $7 million this year that we're starting with. Council started with a reserve balance of $2 million. So over the 4 years, they have continued to take advantage of grants, other things, and then which are always unanticipated. As an example, many of the grants that were received in 2020, 2021 weren't anticipated, and when they were received, kept the expenses of the RM low, so that then these costs could be put into the reserves to deal with the challenges that we were facing as an organization. So, along with these goals, there were core strategies that were established with Council through the strategic planning session. These core strategies were establish an asset management plan. The work has started, and we're anticipating completion, which will help us to manage and then re-establish and review some of those capital assets that we're acquiring, and to determine the best life cycle opportunity when to replace them, and if there's an opportunity to extend that life cycle as we begin to understand our assets. Secure grants for sewer. Those were done, and the sewer project was complete. Is complete, and will be completed by July of this year, end of June. We bring solid waste costs in line with established norms. We've established a review of our solid waste costs. We've looked at reviews of fees, as well as we've also looked at managing our landfill site in order to reduce the cost of managing it. Implement cost recovery user fee strategy for non-essential services. Those were some of the user fees established, as well as it was established for fees for things like garbage collection, as well as directly related for curbside pickup, as an example. Remove barriers for sustainable growth and related future expansion of the tax base. As you can see, the tax base has continued to grow. We've had opportunities to 6.5% growth, and growth is continuing to be significantly higher in the RM based on these introduction of the services needed that pipes underground allow for development to proceed. Slow and steady tax increase, or that's what Council is committed to, and starting in 2019 and has completed in 2022 with that commitment of 2% per year. Strengthen the planning process. We have been working closely. We've been working with not only with the Red River Planning District, but also the province of Manitoba as we address challenges and understanding the need for planning in the future. Okay. Use incentives to attract the right kind of development. Council introduced funding and an ability for new development to get tax incremental reductions, tax reductions for new development when they're at serviced areas, such as if they have sewer or sewer and water, they are able to get tax refunds. With partners, develop and implement recreational promotional strategy as we discussed, and we're moving forward further on that, although the hiatus for the last couple of years due to COVID have had an impact on the ability to provide all the services. Enhance and promote water access. We are proceeding on that. There's been many challenges in finding the right locations, and this year we're positive that we have at least 2 possible locations that will benefit for further water access for our residents. Increase the capacity in the RM for year-round programs for all ages. And this year, last year and this year, we have hired a recreation manager who's focused directly on providing these and working with our neighboring RMs, and also working on the recreation master plan with our neighboring RMs of the RM St. Clements as well as the city of Selkirk. And a communication strategy to accompany all goals. As has been demonstrated, the RM is committed to ongoing communications and have continued to provide further communication opportunities to share what is happening and look at other venues beyond just the standard web page, but looking at Twitter, looking at Facebook, looking at providing Connect through YouTube, as well as this year there's going to be a focus also to providing printed material to make sure all our residents have access to information that the RM is providing in order to make them all educated to what's available. So the highlights for this year, we have in 2021, Council has adopted has continued to reduce the future risks related to infrastructure costs by first a mill rate devoted directly towards roads, which is equals this year of $796,109.78. Stabilize the reserves from year-end surpluses to provide sufficient funds for capital projects in 2022. Road construction this year, $1.4 million. Public works, capital projects, purchases of $677,000. These are only the major ones that I'm referring. It's not a total number. Public works, Coville Side and Fuller Road projects of $600,000. Fire department equipment purchases of $800,000. Environmental waste and site improvements of $355,000. Support recreation with $225,000 in active transportation and trails, and another $85,000 in community recreation projects. Construction of a boat launch of $100,000. Continue to support business community with $50,000 towards the biz development improvement zones. Commitment to the community and volunteer groups in grants totaling $199,000. Delivery of strategic infrastructure priorities, as mentioned, will be delivered this year of $9.7 million. Fiscal and cash flow management reduction and reliance for utilizing the operating line of credit as identified, and continue to implement a 3-year budget strategy, and then the implementation of the general purpose reserve to address fiscal resiliency. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That addresses my presentation.
Thank you for that. We'll now open it up for any questions that the people in the chamber here may have. And once all the questions have been answered, I will open it up to see if council has any comments, and we'll go from there. So first of all, Marion, did you have anything that you wanted to talk to council about, or?
Nothing in particular, no. I just basically came along so that when people complain that the RM doesn't do anything, they're paying too much taxes, I like to be able to give them a little bit of a knowledgeable answer to them, a rebuttal in many cases. Yeah. Other than the fact that the sewer planning has really gone well, and we're really pleased with that for our area at Lockport. Can't wait for the water. In fact, if you could put it in yesterday, we would be very happy. And the communications is really, really important from the RM. Much appreciated, and we've actually been suggesting and sort of pushing to our residents there that get on the RM website, read what's going on, and you know, learn more about what your council is doing for you. So, and I'm very pleased to see you're strengthening the reserve, because that is so important to have that reserve fund ahead of you, to have it allocated for certain areas. We do it on a much lower level than that but it is so important to have that in hand. And also a backup for your operational budgets too, so. Yeah, you do it at a big level, we do it at a much lower level, but it's really, really paid off. Yeah, thank you for all your work.
And thank you for that, Marion. Terry, did you want to address council or have questions for council?
Yes, I sure would. I'm going to just start with the page number 2, and then I'll comment on some of the comments from the different goals that were mentioned in your presentation that isn't part of the financial plan. Just to confirm, the fiscal year end, is it a calendar year end that we're looking at?
Yes, we work on a calendar year, not like the province that it's March 31st. Municipalities are on a calendar year.
I'd like to comment that the sales of service, I'm very impressed with the last year's actual figures in comparison to the budget for the civil governance, protective, transportation, environmental and health. I see that's way over budget, which was nice to see, as well as recreation and culture. So that was much appreciated.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Terry, before we go any further, you're looking at the
Page 2.
financial plan, H2 of the financial plan? Okay, thanks. I don't know if we can.
I can certainly look at bringing it up, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you can just bear with us for a sec so we can get it up on our screens so we can follow along. Yeah, it's really shaky today.
Finding it? Yeah. Grab water.
Oh, sure. Is there water in the jug here? Is there some in there?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm good. Well, whatever.
Somebody's well.
That big white well in the men's room there.
No, not that one.
Not that one.
They drank it first, Terry, so it must be okay.
And you still have your hair, so that's a good sign. Shut the lights off, you're gonna be glowing green phosphorus though.
Okay, I'll just share
Hey,
that,
Bob.
Madam Mayor.
Perfect.
And I'll just share it so that everybody can see it
Yeah.
on better on
Perfect,
Zoom.
thank you.
And going to page 2.
Page 2, yeah. So my comments were very, from the very beginning there, went under the section sales of service and how they were way up over last year's budget. There's no real response required on your part, thanks very much. No, conditional grants, I know you talked about that quite a bit in your verbal presentation there. The next year's budget compared to last year's actual is significantly lower. Do you anticipate that budget to be exceeded?
No?
So we're gonna be down significantly this year's forecasted budget compared to last year's actual in grants?
As I mentioned, yeah,
Yeah.
the grants are what we predict and what we may know of at this point.
Perfect.
Those are the grants that we're anticipating. Now, there may be new grants coming in, but remember, the budget is lower also because we have capital projects that are not purchased, that were identified last year, that aren't in this year. Some of those are some significant capital items such as purchase of fire equipment,
Yeah.
which can be $500,000 for one piece of equipment.
So going back to your last comment, the date you set this budget was what date? Like when was this budget finished and typed and passed through? Like what was the date of this budget? When did you finish it?
May the 10th.
When is it available?
Well, it was made available after the first reading. On the date of the first reading was on
Approximately.
March 26th that it was made available.
So it's quite
to
current.
council. It is very current.
Thanks. I talked to Shannon a couple of times via email, and thank you, Shannon, for helping me out. On the bottom of page 2 there under reserves, this refers to page 13. As you can see, there is no page 13 in the financial plan. There's a page 13A and a page 13B. So she tried to explain the reserves to me to the best of her ability, and I'll have to look at it more closely. But those two figures under reserves beside the page 13 don't appear to be on page 13A or page 13B at all. So it's very hard to trace those two numbers to page 13. No layman could find them. So just wanted to point that out to you. Let's go to page 3 under flood control. Obviously, since March the 23rd, whatever date you just gave me, the budgeted figure for flood control is a big fat zero, when last year's actual was 849,000. Are you satisfied and comfortable with that zero there for a budgeted figure for flood control?
Yes, that specific flood control was specifically related with the DFA claim for Ludwig Road.
Thank you.
That also affected the grants
Correct.
from page
Because we had
2.
anticipated previously higher grants for the DFA claim, and then it was for what the actual costs were, and then we were reduced by the amount. So those flood control works are different. Shannon, did you want to put anything further on that?
Okay, we're good. Bottom of page 3 under road construction and maintenance. Oh, so sure, there she is. No, can't understand her.
It's okay, Shannon, your connection isn't working too great.
Yeah. Tell her to respond to me in email. She's got me in okay, thanks. Done. Okay.
Well, I think this is still going on. Shannon, you can stop talking.
Yeah, I can't understand a word.
Sounds like more. Muted.
Okay. So under road construction and maintenance, I see where last year's actual was significantly lower than the budget. You can see that 1.025 million to the 1.4 million dollars for budgeted.
Sorry, which
Under
page?
road construction and maintenance, the bottom of page 3. Third last line.
It's okay, Shannon, don't worry. She is muted, so that's still coming through from the last
Wow,
talk.
that's a delay.
Yes, for the transportation services, from the actual to the completion, that's because what we do is take into consideration some of the works that were needed to be done and some of those road construction and maintenance. In that road construction and maintenance was also included something like Ludwig.
You can go to page 4, please. The very top under ditches and road drainage. What portion of that was Ward 2? Or do we have that information available? If not, Shannon can just send it to me electronically.
That was in the slide presentation for what was completed in 2021.
Right.
But we can get you that information.
Sure, thank you. Just need to, what's Ward 2's portion of that?
Yeah.
Good, thanks. No, I don't know where underneath the expenses here on page 4 would include street signage, reduced speed signs and things like that. As you know, in Grand Marais, and most of you have been in Grand Marais, the speed limit of 60 kilometers on PTH 12 is not adhered to. Speed limit of 30 kilometers in the business section is not adhered to, especially on Grand Beach Road, Parkview, and Donald Street. Grand Beach Road is a business section, and nobody goes 30 kilometers down there. Parkview is the road in front of Matanzas. I've seen vehicles airborne off the hill, off Matanzas Hill. Ridiculous. And Donald Street is the entrance to the Grand Marais Rec Hall. That road is never traveled at 30. I could clock the school bus going down there at 50 to 60 kilometers every day. So I'd like to see some flags put up on the signs that say 30 kilometers to maybe make them more aware it's 30 kilometers. I know we do the best we can with municipal bylaw enforcement and speed, and that's great. Just that it's a recreation area, we have to be respectful to people that are there that want to have a safe passage, and especially crossing PTH 12 now that we put in that Dan Lester crossway there. It's redonkulous, the speeds. Somebody suggested to reduce the speed well in advance of Grand Marais from 100 to 80, then 80 to 60 to slow them down. Because once you see the 60 sign, they're already at Bill's store. And they're still going way faster than 60. And they rarely back down on the gas pedal. So some of those little orange flags off the 30-kilometer signs, just to show them that it is 30, and off the 80-kilometer or the 60, just to kind of make them more aware that there is a speed limit in the community. It gets worse every year, and they're the local people. The tourists probably adhere to it, but it's the locals that break the rules. So I don't know where that's in the expense side, but there's enough money in the budget for that. I'd love to see that. Under environmental and health services, garbage and waste collection, where's the income from the Grand Marais landfill and transfer station?
The income shows up in our page 2.
It is, okay. Which line, do you remember?
It doesn't break it down specifically.
Okay, I'll ask Shannon to let me know.
But she can give you the
Yeah.
detail if you'd like
Yeah.
to see that.
Perfect, great. The curbside collection, again, Shannon, for Ward 2, what's the curbside collection expenses for Ward 2 on page 4?
I think it's split.
And we'll go to page 5 under regional development. Is the commercial industrial development, is that the responsibility of our economic development officer?
It's the responsibility for all staff within the RM. And the economic development officer works on specific projects.
Perfect.
Those are part of it, and so does our planning officer work on some of those projects.
Super duper. Where's his expenses in the budgeted expenditures on page 5? I'll ask Shannon to get back to him.
Yeah.
And have we sold any lots on Sunset Bay Estates in the last fiscal year?
In the last fiscal year,
Yeah.
last year, yes, we did.
Do you know the
We're
number?
complete.
Pardon me?
We're complete selling all RM owned lots in there.
We're all sold now?
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you very much. It's a huge relief to the financial statements over the last 3 or 4 years.
Correct.
Very nice, thank you. At the very bottom of page 5, utility expansion, this year's budget is a transfer of $200,000. Is that a transfer? Last line, page 5?
It should be.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, transfer to reserve.
So the revenue from the sale of the Sunset Bay Estate lots, is that something, what page is that on? Is that on 8C? And the
Yes, I
grand rates?
remember, yeah, for the Sunset Bay lots,
Yeah,
the revenue should be showing in there.
so the actual physical selling price of those lots should be on that page?
Yeah, they all came forward as part of a public hearing to council.
Okay.
If you'd like, we can give you the price of each of those lots. They were all sold for the same amount in order to reduce the carrying cost for the RM.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear. Sure, Shannon can do that for me. Thank you, Shannon. Okay, page number, where am I up to now here? Page number 8. You mentioned the budget of $17 million. And then on this page, it's the calculation of tax levies. What portion of the tax levies is Ward 2 tax levies? Maybe Shannon can answer that for me too on page 8.
They're not broken down that way.
No, they're not broken down.
No.
Can it be broken down that way?
I think that's going to be a little bit difficult to break down the tax levies
Even
by.
an approximation?
We can take a look at seeing
Yeah.
if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too hard to do there, Mayor?
It's not that it's hard to do, but it is time consuming,
Yeah.
and the way the records are set up, we're one municipality,
Right.
like, you know, and we, whether you're in Ward 1 or Ward 2, the money goes into the same pot, and we use it where it's needed. Other municipalities may have 5 or 6 wards, and the same thing, the money all goes into one pot, and it's used where it's needed. Shannon will have a look, but
Yeah.
it may not be the easiest thing to
Well,
do.
this wasn't my question anyways, this was a question from somebody from Alexander,
Oh, okay,
because they wanted to know what the Ward 2 tax levies were
right,
for their own personal reasons.
okay,
And we'll leave it like that.
okay.
You can probably read through mine. Yeah, okay. Nice to hear the good rate of the indebtedness being a very low rate. Very proud of you to do that. Are most of our debt there on page 11, is it fixed rate or is it floating?
Fixed.
Fixed, so we have very, very little floating? We have no floating?
We don't go on floating.
Thank you.
Provincial, we either get the provincial rate once it's established at the time of borrowing. Generally speaking, you do the capital projects and then you get the borrowing when you start the debenture. At that point, then it's secured for 20 years.
So the thing that's variable is your line of credit.
Line of credit is variable.
Everything else is fixed.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
But, well, let's be clear here. It's fixed. As an example, if you go in to borrow $1 million as a borrowing authority, when you get the borrowing authority, you do an estimate as to what the amount would be for the borrowing. And then when the project is complete, when you start the debenture payments,
Hmm?
at that point, the borrowing could be higher.
Okay.
So just so it's clear, it's, it could have been
It's-
started off at 3% as an estimate, and interest rates could go up to 4 or 5%. And that's where you have to decide when it's the right time to borrow.
I understand, good.
And it works the other way too.
Yes, it could go
As
down.
per the couple of projects that we borrowed, because the original estimate was 4%,
Correct.
and we got it for, I think it was 2.83.
Yeah,
So,
those are nice wins.
I mean, I get your question because the likelihood of them going up now is what's going to happen, yeah.
Page 13A, you mentioned under your goal number 4 about boat launches, and then you also mentioned Grand Beach dredging. How does Grand Beach dredging have to do with the rural municipality of St. Clements?
The Grand Beach dredging was just recognized that will help. We've looked at opportunities in Grand Marais for boat launches, and what we're looking at is doing a non-motorized boat launch in Grand Marais. And then what I suggested was that also in Grand Beach, there's been some dredging which allows for further boat access. And that was also the issue behind why people were asking for the boat launch in Grand Marais. That's why.
We've been
It is
after
being
the
done by the
province.
province, and we've been discussing these things with the province.
Pardon me?
We've been after the province to do something there too, for the park to make it more accessible, so.
Yeah, I've been in for 28 years, and I was past president of the Grand Beach Cottage Association, so I know that quite well. They wouldn't dredge it because of the Department of Oceans and Fisheries, because of the frogs and snails and tadpoles.
Correct.
And then, if you know the beach, it's all sandbar, so that dredge is gonna last a couple of days. And it'll be impassable again. The sand's just gonna come right in again. And you have to go near their bridge, the footbridge. So when you leave the lagoon going to the lake, you have to travel under a bridge, which is very low. So you probably have to push your boat from the lagoon into the lake. I hope the water table and the sandbar hasn't changed between when you left the lagoon and when you came back in. And the boat launch in the lagoon is 2 boat launches. They're older than I am. And
True.
and they will not spend a damn one.
We'll continue to work with them. There are things that we're constantly working with the other levels of government for, but let's be clear, we've also looked at launches in Grand Marais.
Absolutely.
And there's been various challenges to the point it's been very difficult.
Very huge challenges, because we don't have enough publicly owned property to be able to do a proper boat launch without having a local community lack of support. Nobody wants to have cars parked in front of their cottage.
Yes.
Okay, I see Councillor Belanger has his hand up, so go
Yeah.
ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to comment on Terry's, Terry mentioned about the dredging there, and Terry, yes, I've been saying it for years, as you know, I'm quite familiar with that area, that if the province wants to spend the money to dredge that outlet, all the power to them, but I was saying the same thing that you said, is within not long, it'll be filled in again with the drifting sand. So we'll see what happens. It's interesting that they're willing to spend the money, so we'll see what happens, but I think that is what's going to happen over time.
And as you heard them talking about $14 million of spending in the park, only $180,000 of that is for dredging of the lagoon.
Correct.
But they didn't mention that in their press releases. You gotta read the fine print. So $180,000, and Council Belangi knows it as well as I do. It's just lip service, you know. So on the 5-year capital expenditure program, I don't have a page number on it. It's the one that is landscape, it's the second last page. 5-year capital expenditure program.
Yes.
So there's a borrowing there, 2 borrowings. Can you just explain those 2 borrowings? I kind of might have missed it when you gave us your presentation. Second last column under borrowing. New lift station and the decommissioning. Just really brief, just kind of buttons, yeah.
The new lift station is the South St. Clements utility expansion. That's been identified as a future requirement for the decommissioning of the Lockport treatment plant and the lift station at the Lockport treatment plant.
And just,
What was the other borrowing that you were asking about?
Well, there was 2. The second was, first was decommissioning, second was the lift station. Those are the
Yes,
2, yeah.
that's what they're for.
but if we look at the top of the page, Terry, that's not a borrowing until 2024, that's not for this year.
Right, yeah, thank you. Thanks for pointing that out, thank you. Okay, I'll just go back to your presentation real briefly. So in goal number 3, you mentioned funding to support local businesses and a $50,000 business development zone. Has anything happened with that?
Well, we've been working, our economic development officer's been working with the business community since last year. We're hoping that we may be able to get some progress this year.
What happened to that meeting that Gary Marshall tried to call that Emil Senek was taking their SVPs for?
Didn't occur. It started and we had, at one meeting, we've had one meeting where only 3 individuals showed up. And I think there were some challenges with COVID. We couldn't get together in person. We were trying to connect through the internet and we haven't. And then since then, the 3 individuals from the business community that did show up for that meeting offered to bring together the community to see if we could get the business community working on another one. There wasn't another one scheduled, unfortunately, and we're continuing to go through our commitment. I know that Gary's been meeting with various business individuals and trying to establish something.
I think the delivery was poor on that notice, and why would they have one person singled out in the community to be the RSVP? Why wouldn't Gary Marshall be the RSVP? Because some people don't like other people. The community is very small, and there's a lot of people that don't get along with other people in the community under the business development zone area, because there's a conflict between PTH 12 and Grand Beach Road. There's 2 different business sections, and when you see one person's name there mentioned that has property on Grand Beach Road, the PTH 12 people probably didn't want to go to it. So I would suggest in the future you don't use an individual for an RSVP, you use the municipality. You'd probably get a much better turnout. If people are boycotting it because of the RSVP.
Go ahead, Councillor Corvus.
We have this working in Lockport though, it's successful there, isn't it?
Correct. We've got both sides, both in St.
And there's
Andrews.
business
And
people there
business
from
people
both
working.
sides working.
It could be successful again, if you didn't hear me correctly, in Grand Beach, Grand Marais area, because PTH 12 business section and Grand Beach Road are 2 different sections that don't get along. And the go-to person was Emil Senek from Grand Beach Road. So I think you should have Gary Marshall as the go-to person for SVPs, and then let everybody come to the meeting rather than thinking it's Emil Senek's meeting.
No, I heard all that, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that the system works, it's working in Lockport.
I want it to work in Grand Marais, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I would
just think-
say,
just think that
I
using
would
Emil
disagree
Senek-
with that. Like, I think there was also attempts made by Gary contacting all those individuals individually, letting them know about the meeting. And there were many different, and there was, he was trying to get, and he contacted the individuals separately himself on both sides. One meeting didn't occur. There were also multiple attempts to do additional meetings by Gary with both of those groups.
I would think, yeah.
It's unfortunate, but you know what, I was learning also to understand that there are some challenges and it's unfortunate, but for us, we're trying to bring the business
Oh, for
community
sure, I will
together.
give you the
And the
Grand
people are
Marais
gonna fight each other.
Reconciliation Hall to have the meeting at no charge.
Pardon?
I will give you the Grand Marais Reconciliation Hall to have the meeting at no charge. So you have the meeting in a neutral place, not outside of a business. That meeting was held between 93 and 97 Grand Beach Road, outside Annual Sanex store. So again, you have the PTH 12 people that didn't want to have,
No, the meeting was originally being scheduled as a Zoom meeting. It wasn't intended to be in anyone else's. There was an offer to do it there.
Right.
That was not selected.
Right.
So I don't know where you got that
Okay, well, that's
information.
no-
And the Grand Beach, just so you know, the
absolutely.
GMRA is RM property, and we did select that also as a place to meet.
Perfect.
So we offered that as a place to meet, and yet we still didn't get any other people picking up on it, and Gary sent that invite specifically, so I would take exception to the point that there was an offer at somebody's property. That was never the case. Somebody had made an offer.
Madam Mayor, to get me involved if you want, to have it pushed through, because as Councilor Orbis knows, this is gonna work other places, but you need somebody in the community to assist with the push. And I have no problem assisting with the push to get the meeting launched. Okay?
Comment?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
I think what's important to remember here is this is a suggestion from the municipality to help out that area with a biz zone. If the folks in that area don't get along good enough, then don't take part in it. It's us suggesting it to you, you guys out there, to say, hey, we're trying to help you out, and this is a suggestion for you. But if nobody gets along out there, then don't take part in it. You don't have to, and it fails. If it fails, it fails. It's just a suggestion from us to help you.
And it's a very honorable suggestion, $50,000 is significant. And like I said to Madam Mayor, please get me involved, because I want to use that money for business development for PTH 12 and Grand Beach Road. And I have no problem soliciting and inviting businesses personally to come to that meeting, like Councilor Orbis said. It'll work in other areas, it'll work in ours too. Just that we have to ensure that the delivery and that the overall concept of it is a uniform Grand Marais business development zone, not specifically for Grand Beach Road or PTH 12.
Right, and I guess my comment would be
That's all.
that that's, you know, one of the things that we have to look at, and we have to remember that we don't have as many restrictions on us now, and yes, it was tried through Zoom and things like that, and I think going forward, probably what will happen is we'll continue on for this year, and we will have it at the Grand Marais Rec Center, as our CAO said, that is municipal property, and we'll just pick a date, or Gary Marshall will pick a date, and the invitations will go out,
And I'll
and
open the
who
door.
shows up.
I'll unlock the
will
door
be
for you and
there.
turn up the alarm. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect, good, thank you very much.
no date set though.
No,
yet
no,
at
that's fine,
this
no,
point.
no, yeah. No, this is wonderful to have this conversation, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Horbis has another
Oh,
comment here,
super.
so.
Yeah, and myself and Deepak had gone to, we visited all the businesses there in Grand Marais and told them all about this
I didn't see it.
personally. Well, you weren't open, I don't think.
So, you can find me in the phone book.
Well, then
Just
Gary should have got
because I'm a seasonal business, why am I being discriminated against?
Well, you're not being
You
discriminated.
didn't come, you said you visit all the businesses, you just lied.
No. Let me correct this.
Please correct me.
I think while we were visiting there for a meeting, we had an opportunity to see some of the local businesses. And when we were visiting some of the local businesses, it wasn't intended as a door-by-door knock. That was already taken care of by Gary. This was just, one of the businesses brought up a point that they had heard about the meeting and weren't able to make it. And we said, well, we are trying to schedule another one at the Grand Marais Rec Center, and Gary has been leading it, and if you could get talking to any of the other individuals. This was not intended, and there was nobody not selected. As you and I both know, Gary contacted every business that he could. And it wasn't intended to be having any one business lead anything.
Why
And
was,
there was an offer at that point, and I think it's a misrepresentation. That offer was made by one individual to have it on their site, and we said that was not going to occur immediately. And that never happened. And it had nothing to do with the invite, because the invite was for the Zoom invite. So there may be misunderstandings, but I'm beginning to learn there are a lot of
there is a
misunderstandings.
lot, and thanks for correcting, and thank you, Councilor Orbis, for trying to get the meeting going, and I will pledge myself to assist yourself and anybody else on the council to make it work. It's just disappointing when a seasonal business, only open for 100 days, wants to take advantage of a $50,000 for our community, Grand Marais. The Ward 2 councilors want to have set up as a recreation destination, and it's very hard to do things when we don't have a unified voice from the business community, and we don't. It's dog eat dog out there. It's really horrible. We've been in this is our 10th year, one more thing in business, and I could tell you stories and you'd lose your hair like feedback and I did. So I would volunteer to assist anywhere possible to make anything work. I'll unlock doors, open doors, turn off alarms, assist with knocking on doors, whatever, because I want that $50,000 to be spent in our community, as we talked about this in the past. Thank you very much for clearing that up, and sorry for trying to intimidate you. Okay.
Yeah, no problem, thanks.
Yeah, apologies. Okay. Also in goal number 4, you mentioned washrooms in the 4 beaches area. We've talked about this before. We lost our washroom in Grand Marais. We had an outhouse, and somebody used the outhouse for throwing garbage in it. So somebody actually filled in the holding tank and took away the outhouse. You then put in a porta potty, which the neighbors all around it didn't like. So you probably got negative feedback about the porta potty. I have the plans, and Madam Mayor has the plans of the washroom that's in that nature walk that's over there on Highway 12. That's from the Grand Beach Provincial Park supervisor that site. But Mr. Belanger knows that, Councilor Belanger. So those drawings and plans, I have them and I've sent them over. We'd love to have a washroom on Grand Beach Road. We have the Grand Marais Community Central building, which isn't open a lot of hours. Right now it's only open 3 hours a day. Something on Grand Beach Road would be wonderful to replace the washroom that we lost. That I wasn't there when we lost it, but those businesses lost that washroom. And I think that we deserve to have the washroom. We send people to Grand Beach, to the shower building to go to the washroom on Grand Beach Road, because it's the closest place to go to. It's quite embarrassing. So if it's going to be 1 of 4 washrooms, we'd love to have consideration of a washroom, even in the location it was before, in Grand Marais and Grand Beach, and on Grand Beach Road. And my last question is in regards to the $17 million overall budget figure. I don't really actually see that $17 million anywhere in here. Is there one document that shows the 17 million?
It's on page 1.
Oh, the 2020, is that what, 18 million? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, 17,907?
Correct.
Thanks a lot. Good. And then you mentioned hard surface roads, which is really wonderful to hear about that. And I know that you spent some money on hard surface roads already. On page 3, the budget for hard surface roads under road construction and maintenance. Was that, again, I'm going to single out Ward 1, Ward 2. I know I hate to say this, but I don't live in Ward 1. Was that all Ward 1 hard surface roads?
No, there were some on Ward 2. They were specifically identified as Ward 1 and Ward 2, which roads were being done.
Watch was in Ward 1 and the other 2 are in Ward 2.
It's quite a bit done in Ward 2, actually.
Was it, just to be more specific, was it the southern portion of Ward 2 or the northern portion of Ward 2?
It's where hard surface roads are. And if there are within, there also is a life cycle. There's also a life cycle that's established for a road plan for the next 20 years that establishes through life cycle management as to which ones would need to be replaced. And they go through that. So our public works identifies the cycle, and there's money spent in Ward 1, Ward 2. It doesn't distinguish between whether they're in the southern portion, northern portion, or the middle of any particular ward. It's the quality of the road, the usage of the road, and what needs to be done and the priority associated with it.
Well, Ward 2, the northern portion, is very well maintained. You have Grand Beach Road and Parkview are in wonderful condition. So Harry's been working on that. It's really good. It's only a hard-to road we have, and it's in very good condition. Thanks very much for keeping it maintained. We'd love to see some crosswalks on it. Other than that, it's really good. Yeah.
Well, I think Parkview we did a few
You
years
did.
ago.
You did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You did. Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but it comes down to the road plan that comes through a public process, and our Public Works Department goes through and reviews each of the roads and then determines where we need to replace because they're going to be at a level of deterioration.
Yeah.
As you can appreciate, we have an infrastructure deficit here as much as any other
Yeah. Well, I
municipality.
guess we're lucky because our 50-year-old roads are in pretty good shape up in Grand Marais, so we're really lucky. And like you said, Parkview was just done a
Yeah,
couple
not
years
that
ago.
long.
I watched them do it, so I couldn't even get out of my house, it was so bad.
Yeah.
They had Parkview shut down, and of course I live in Parkview in Central, so I couldn't get out. So they let me know. Yeah. So that concludes my questions. Thanks for allowing me to take the time today. I think that your presentation was wonderful. I think you're very knowledgeable, and I think all the councillors all should be applauded for the work they've done to keep within the mill rate and to keep the increases low. It's always a concern of people on fixed incomes to have affordable taxes, and our taxes are very affordable in Grand Marais. I'd just like to see, and thank you, Councillor Horvitz, again, for allowing the business section to do something. As a seasonal business and other seasonal businesses in Grand Marais, if there's any consideration for a property tax relief, that would be very much appreciated and accepted. If you could talk about that somewhere in a future meeting. We have a lot of seasonal businesses, and we pay 365 days a year property taxes for 110 days worth of being open. So we missed out on those knocks on the door, we missed out on a whole bunch of stuff, but we still pay the same taxes as Bill Snowden's store next to yard does. So. All right, thank you, and thank you, Shannon, for everything you've done in the last couple of days, answering my questions and answering these ones. And looking forward to having you guys exceed the budget and revenue and make sure the expenditures come in even lower, and that would make everybody happy. So, any questions for Terry?
Well, I see Councillor Belanger has his hand up, so you
Oh,
may
sorry, I
have
didn't see
another
it.
comment. No, he just put it up, so go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, Shannon sent me, she said here, "Hi Rob, can you please read answer for me?" And it has to do with, I guess, a couple of Terry's questions. Did you want me to read what she had wrote?
No, just forward it to me, Councillor Belanger. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll take a picture and I'll find a way to get
Well,
it.
yeah, but Shannon has my email address. She can send it to me. Yeah, thanks. I've already taken up enough of your time tonight, Councillor. Thank you.
Okay, any other?
We'll also probably read those questions and answers, the ones that you've asked today that we haven't been able to answer.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah,
We should be responding to those
that's
for
fine.
the second and third reading.
That's super. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay, any members of council have any questions or comments or anything that they want to close before we close off?
Nice to see someone came.
I much prefer to see face to face rather than.
Yeah,
I'm sick and
absolutely.
tired of Zoom
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We all are.
I think we're all getting to that point. It's been a long haul, and you know, it's kind of nice if you can be sitting at home doing a meeting, but it's much nicer to be here and see everybody and have a conversation and just see each other. We haven't seen each other for many months now, so this is awesome. Going around the table, anything?
I just want to say this budget was very challenging for council to put forward in the state that we are in right now with COVID and now with the war going on. We're all hit with inflation, everybody in their homes and us as a municipality too. And hopefully that Mother Nature treats us better because we've had an awful winter and very wet spring, so hopefully we have a dry and pleasant summer, so for our public works too, because they put in lots of time and our administration living here at the RM office.
Yeah. Councillor Sutherland, are you
Oh,
good?
good.
Okay, Councillor Horvis.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see all the reserves come up. They're all in where they should be. It's nice to have that money put there, and it's nice to have Sunset Bay put the rest too.
Yes, thank you very much for that's a relief for all of us.
Councillor Bazarowicz, jeez.
Nothing really, just I thought a few more people would have joined in.
On Zoom.
You know.
Councillor Spicer,
I already butted in, so.
you already butted in.
And with that means most people are pretty happy.
Well, that's what they say, but you know what, if anybody has questions, I mean, Deepak's door is always open. If anybody has any questions, if you're talking to your neighbors or somebody's grumbling in Lockport, get them to Deepak a call and he'll either answer the questions or pass them on to Shannon. So I would like to thank you both for coming out this evening, taking time to be here and ask your questions and have your comments. It's much appreciated. I kind of like it when there's at least somebody in the room and not just us, because we have had financial plan hearings where there's been nobody in the room, so we just have our hearing, we do the presentation even though there's nobody here, and we go home. So this was kind of good that we got to have a little chat and a bit of conversation with the two of you. So very much appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us this
From the
evening.
point of view, from myself and the boards at Lockport at the condominiums, we really appreciate the cooperation and help that we have been receiving while this council has been sitting, and yeah, we really have, it's been a good 4 years actually.
Mhm. It has been.
Really, yeah, excellent, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that.
Thank you. Anything that you would like to close off with, Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're, just one thing I'd like to clarify as well is that our public open house, which went through a similar part of this presentation in a little bit more detail, did have some 20 individuals
Good.
that did connect through Zoom, and they were able to ask a series of questions, and those are all answered, and that's all available on our website.
Yeah, I had to go on the website for that because I unfortunately had other things scheduled for that day. So I'm hoping to have another open house or something later on this year, hopefully.
Well, not specifically related to the budget.
No, not with the
We're
budget,
done
no.
with this, but I know that council has discussed now, due to reductions or elimination of some of the health protocols from the province related with COVID, that we can have some further sharing of information with our residents.
That's really important. Communication is so important. It allays a lot of unhappiness if people take the time to inquire and get the right answer, get the answers, rather than blowing up at meetings and stuff like that. It makes so much difference.
I feel we have one of the best communicators in the surrounding RMs
We have
working for us, so that's made a big difference.
no, we've been really lucky.
Yes, and the last thing that I would like to comment on, if there's anybody in your area that you know that is not on Connect or not on our mailing list, we do our newsletter every month. We just got one yesterday, so if you are not on that mailing list, please join. There's lots of good information there. And on the Connect, if there's any sort of emergency or if it's specific to a certain area, we can send a message out that way. So tell all your friends and neighbors that are in our municipality to join Connect and to join in for our newsletter on a monthly basis. And any other communications, like I know over the last couple of weekends, our communications person has been sending out updates on the weather and road closures and all those sorts of things. So we're hoping that the more we communicate, the more people we can get on so that people are informed. And yes, there are people that still are not using computers as some of us do. So if you know of somebody that maybe isn't, you could maybe pass on information to them.
What we've done is we have our people that have computers, we forward the information on like the road closures, we send it to everybody, and then what we do is we just make a notice and make sure that the people that don't have the computers, we just slip it under their doors or we hang it on the elevator or something. So they do get it, and we would encourage them to do that, so.
Good. Okay, and if there is nothing else from anyone, I will say that the meeting is adjourned at 8:45.